Hello, Internet! It's a little bit windy outside, so I'm in what I'm calling the sun corner today. Usually I'm over there in the shade corner, but it's a little bit chillier than normal because it decided to be. When there's gonna be sun, I want to be in it today. So I'm not gonna welcome you to anything today because I'm kind of on an adrenaline high. I just submitted my master's dissertation, so I don't really want to die. I just wanted to today do something a little bit more fun, a little bit more laid back, something that I can laugh at and not think about what I just did. So, for today's video, I have an anecdote. When I was at work a few weeks ago, there was a boy, and this boy was a little flirtatious. He was also very, very American. Like, picture a California surfer, that was him. A colleague and I were laughing. She asked me, she said, how do American boys flirt compared to how British boys flirt? To be honest, I don't know, because I can say with absolute certainty that I have never been flirted with by a British boy. Hasn't happened. But it did get me thinking. I have lived in both the States and the UK, and in both countries I've been asked some pretty weird questions, usually starting with, do they really do? So today I thought it would be fun. Look, sun! I thought it would be fun to look at real questions I have been asked from people in both countries about the other, about whether or not they really do that. So I've got 5 questions for each country, and let's just have a laugh. Starting with the UK. Do you really drink a lot of tea? Who are you talking to? The official answer is yes, but just as many people drink coffee. There are a lot of Costas and Starbucks. Costa is a coffee shop similar to Starbucks, and there are about just as many of them. Side note, I recently heard that Americans don't understand the concept of the meal tea. My sister told me that her colleagues were so confused about the meal called tea, where tea is not necessarily drunk. Simplistic explanation, sometimes you make a big dinner, and my family usually roasts, and eats it at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Tea is the small meal you eat at a normal dinner time a bit later to have food before bed. Tea is not a requirement to be drunk at tea. I don't know why it's called that. Maybe some people know why. For the US, can you actually just walk into a shop and buy a gun? Yes, that is true. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Back to the UK, is there really year-round school and do you really have to wear uniforms? Yes, uniforms really are worn. I have never met anybody who is bothered by that. And as far as year-round school, yes, with 6 weeks of summer, which means that they've only just broken up. But something that people don't tend to reference is the sheer number of mid-year breaks. 1 week at half term, 2 weeks at Christmas, then another week, another half term in February, another 2 weeks at Easter, and then another week at another half term, and then the 6 weeks. On top of that, high school age children start school about a half an hour to 45 minutes later than my high school did and get out around the same time. It's up to you which version of it you prefer. I do have to say, the number of times I've explained the different school systems to opposite countries is just mind-boggling. Why are you guys so interested in school? Like, it's great, education for the win, but like, it just makes me laugh. For the US, do all 16-year-olds really get cars for their birthdays? No? That depends, but where I was living, generally yes. I mean, I didn't get one for my birthday, but I was 16 when I got one. Even the kids without much money in Holland, which is where I was living, got cars, usually hand-me-downs, but I can't make generalized claims because I don't meet every human. For most of the people I knew, the answer was yes. And the reason is simply, in America, or more specifically in the Midwest, things are so far apart that walking or biking there is nearly impossible. It's a lot easier for parents to send their kids out rather than ferrying them around. Except for one grocery store and a strip of fast food places, the nearest shops were 20-minute drive from my house. It's just not possible. Public transport in the area is not good. True, most families, including mine, have a shared car for children over 16, but most families I knew at least had that one car. Again, this is the suburban Midwest, so it depends elsewhere in the country. Where I was, yes. That being said, my super sweet 16 is not a real thing unless you're super rich and a terrible person. I know 0 people like that. Not even the entitled ones I hate. Seriously, complete myth. I don't understand why you guys think we actually do that. For the UK, what do you guys do on the 4th of July? Okay, this is a real question I have actually been asked. Let me ask you this. What do Americans do on the 5th of November? You have no idea, do you? It's just another day. 4th of July came and went this year, and I literally forgot about it until I was at work, and I was like, huh. It's like asking what you do on Guy Fawkes Night. Most people I know in America have no idea what that is. Why would they think about it? Why would they do anything for it? Also, no, Guy Fawkes Night is not the equivalent holiday to Independence Day. There are lots of different fireworks holidays. On a similar note, a more commonly asked question I get is, how do they teach the American Revolution? I get that question so much. Again, the number of questions I get about school is insane. The fact is, a lot of schools just don't. When I was young, I had to explain what I meant by the Revolutionary War to people, and I looked it up. There's no like 5 years war, like separate name. It's just the American Revolution. And more recently, as people got older, the more humorous answer is, well, Lost another one. By this point, England was a global fucking empire. Yes, losing America sucked, but they had way more colonies to worry about. And besides, Mad King George of Hamilton fame, just kidding, American children know George III's name before they're 10. He's known here for being a mad king. Losing America is seen as more of a consequence of his incompetence. They don't see it as much more than that. Now, I did not go to school here to learn this, so this is just what I've been told. But I've had this confirmed by more than a few people, so this still might depend, but it's the general gist. Back to the US, does everyone really have an American flag on their house? I didn't. A lot of houses do. A lot of houses are actually built with little, like, holders that you can put flagpoles. Although they do have a lot of flags for their chosen college football team. You see those everywhere, especially in the suburban Midwest. As far as American flags, there is a sense of patriotism, but I don't think it's strong enough that it's actively on most people's minds when they put flags up, but I could be wrong. The number of people who, unprovoked, have freedom on their minds on a daily basis, I think is very few. I think people need to be thinking about their country to get into that much of a stink over it. That being said, I have seen construction equipment with flags on them, which I think is utterly ridiculous, but I could be wrong. Are English people obsessed with America like we're obsessed with England? I'm gonna say generally no. There is a sense of a lot of people wishing that they could go to the States on holiday, or going and just adoring it, but not with the same fervor. There's no real desire to be American like a lot of Americans I know wish they were English. That being said, American culture is a massive influence here. Except for a few like words and phrases, pop culture is almost exactly the same. There's even politicians complaining about England's Americanization, so it is a thing, and it's a big influence. As far as the American accent though, that hugely depends. I wouldn't think that they think boys with American accents are cuter, although you will definitely be noticed. There are some who won't particularly enjoy it. I've met people who fervently hate American accents. I think it comes from the general reputation of Americans here, a sense of arrogance and entitlement that they expect everything to be their own way. Although I do have to say that in being here, I have not noticed this stereotype in action. What I have seen is that Americans don't really have access to cultures apart from themselves. The country is absolutely huge, and there are multiple states bigger than this one. Really think about the fact that there might be a different culture, especially since England is English speaking and almost the rest of the culture is exactly the same. For example, Americans get really pissed off at the service they get in restaurants. Servers don't always circle tables here, coming back every 5 minutes. In America, they do this because they're essentially begging for tips. They don't get paid otherwise. And yes, I know it's degrading, and yes, I'm serious. But here, servers get paid. They don't have to beg. So they come around every so often, make sure all's good, but if you need something, you have to ask. Americans simply aren't used to that, and they think it denotes bad service. So the fact is, yes, American is a big deal here, but I think there's a bit of a barrier to obsession in the stereotypes and cultural misunderstanding. Are Americans really obsessed with the royal family? Yes, and it's kind of weird. There's something about the history and pageantry of it all. They think it's really sophisticated, elegant, cool, I don't know. I think it's about seeing rich people parade around like something out of a fairy tale. They never let anything like that happen in their own country, but the English monarchy is pretty well known, so they just transfer their obsessions onto them. Now, I'm not kidding about this either. When William and Kate got married, and I have to imagine it happened again for Harry and Meghan, they played the royal wedding on every TV in my high school hallway. So if you're walking to class, going to the office, using the toilet, anything, that wedding would be visible. Some classrooms even watched it. It was weird, but it's a thing. It's absolutely a thing. And for my final questions, for the UK, have you ever met the Queen? No. Oh, have you ever met the president? You haven't? I thought all Americans have to have coffee with the president at some point. That sounds dumb, right? Well, flip it. And the number of times I've been asked this is kind of ridiculous. I have not met the Queen. I have never had tea with the Queen, and it's not necessarily normal to have met the Queen. Yes, I have cousins who have met her, sure, but not everyone does. And on that note, I have not met One Direction, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hiddleston, Daniel Radcliffe, or any famous person ever. I've literally never even seen a famous person on the street in London. It's just not how it works. Although I do have to say that apparently if you look hard enough, you can generally see one famous person per trip to London. And my final question for the US, is Target really the greatest thing ever? Oh my god, yes. Absolutely, yes. Oh my god, it's the greatest thing in the world. I honestly have not been able to describe what Target is and why it's so amazing, but it's amazing. Like seriously, you can find everything there. It's like everything you need in one shopping trip, but not like in Asda, because that's literally owned by Walmart, by the way. So not great. I couldn't describe Target if I tried. But yes, Target really is the greatest thing ever. So that's my most commonly asked questions about the two countries. I laughed a lot. We let off some steam. All of those questions are real questions. I didn't make a single one of them up, and they've all been asked to me. Yes, it can get a little bit ridiculous, but I also kind of love hearing what other people think about about where I live and where I am. I get a lot of questions about, you know, living in the city, and I live in the suburbs. I think it's a lot of fun to hear other people's experiences. Did you know that apparently there's a stereotype here that Americans are good at math? What? Apparently, like, we're really good mathematicians because we're required to take math all the way into university. I've never heard that stereotype before, but I think it's amazing. You really learn things about places and people based on what they've heard about another place or person. That's been really fun. I do want to mention, I received literally no hate for being American here. I feel like in America, there's the stereotype that Europeans hate Americans. That's not true. I have gotten absolutely no hate. Everyone kind of thinks it's really fun, and they love to ask me all those questions. Hence why I was able to make this list for you. It's been a really good time. I really kind of enjoyed thinking this through and sitting in the sun corner where you have seen sun for exactly 20 seconds. Thank you for indulging my need to get out my anxiety. If you liked it or you want to see more of my adrenaline-fueled ramblings, please like this video, share it with people you love, and as always, hit that subscribe button. I don't know why I always do this, but I do. As usual, my social media will be in the description box. Now that I have finally submitted my dissertation, hopefully I will actually do stuff on social media. We'll see how it goes. I'll see you guys next week. I post new videos on Fridays. Bye!